Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
It's amazing when you talk with somebody or you get to know them a little bit better, you learn so much. And everybody, as I've learned, is on a journey. This gentleman's journey, amazing. He is a prominent architect in the New York metro area. But before that, he was a tennis pro, a tennis legend. And we're going to go back with him and talk about some of those stories. I mean, literally, when he was in his teens, low 20s, he was crushing it in the tennis world. He just wrote a book about it as well. I learned a lot from him, even just making choices in life and how to go for what you really want. Mr. John Riggio is back with us. Hey, John, how you doing?
Great. Hi, Steve. How's everything there?
Very well. And before we continue, I want you to give us the title of the book. And there's a reason I want you to. Go ahead.
Yes, the title of the book is My Own Court, The Life Story of Tennis Legend John Riggio.
And the reason I wanted you to deliver the title is tennis legend John Riggio. As I learned from you last time we got together, you don't just throw that term around. You know, I'm radio legend Steve Harper. I don't know. Some may say I am, some may what. Or the point is, tennis legend, that title is only bestowed upon someone who's attained a certain number of wins, etc. Can we go back to that? Can you explain that again for us?
Yes, the term tennis legend in professional ATP tennis, it has to do with the number of tournaments a player has won. So really, like approximately the year 1989, I was playing in Sutton East in Manhattan, and my sponsor informed me that I passed the number of tournament wins for the title tennis legend.
Wow. I had no idea that there was, I just thought, we'll just throw that title, or, a tennis legend could be somebody that is recognizable in the tennis world. You were back in the day, but you think of some of those names that come up, Bjorn Borg and on and on and on, call them tennis legends. I don't know if they've actually won, a certain number of games, but you recognize the names because of media, endorsements, blah, 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 blah. No, but there's a reason you get that title based on the number of wins that you've had, your performance.
Yeah, I think years later, after I had stopped playing tennis, I had met some players that you usually see on television, and a lot of them were younger players too. There was a number of younger players, but they all knew about my playing on court 33. So I was already a legend at that point too. They know about my playing, my excellent winning of playing these upper tournaments. So I think as far as tennis goes, they do know about my playing, and in some ways that I am sort of like a legend as far as that's concerned, that people do remember my playing. So I think that was pretty good. And so, yeah, the word legend is not only is it a term of how many tournaments you won, but I think since some people did know about my playing, I think this book also helps. It sort of relieves like an idea of players maybe saying they know I was playing, maybe some newer players or older players or players from different locations might have heard that I used to play at court 33 and I was an excellent player. This sort of pieces together that kind of a legend. So it's not like more like a myth or a legend. They can read this book and they can get the definite facts about it. I think even some things like the grandstand, all like little points like that, this pieces together those things. If they get an idea that there was some kid that was playing, and that's what was happening there back then, this sort of book does piece that together too. Wow. So I think that is something good. So I think I was happy about that. I think that worked really good. And so that's what really was going on as far as the tennis legend. So I just put the word tennis legend. I think the title also, I made the title very straightforward, saying my own court and then the tennis legend. So you don't think it's a story about something else, own court or legend or what kind of sport. I just put those words in there. So if you read the title, it's all there for you. You can just get the idea. And then when you read the book, it puts all the pieces together. And I kept the book as straightforward as possible. Try to take out as many things that would divert your attention to what was happening. And I sort of gave also just like all kinds of interesting things people like to read about, different things, different little stories and points going through the book.
And I want to get to the book. Just randomly, we'll pick some chapters and have you walk us through them. But I want to go back to something you said a moment ago. Court 33, did I hear that right?
Yes, there was a Court 33 at the National Tennis Center in Flushing, New York. And originally it was used as a practice court. But then in 1987, I showed up there at the Pro Center, like I was invited to play there, and they gave me that court as my own court to play with.
I want to share with you, if for those that believe in numerology, and some say it's a science, numbers dictate our lives and future. As I've learned, the number 3 is a very powerful number to manifest. Nikola Tesla only did things in multiples of 3. Everything had to be divisible by 3. All of his experiments, he had hundreds of patents. He invented the motor. He may have invented electricity. There's a gray line there between he and Edison, and on and on. And double numbers are very powerful in terms of success. 3-3. Just saying. The fact that is, the court that you were on, and you had so much success back in the day. Based on that, I'm not even surprised. But then I digress. I'm sharing what I've learned, and look up Nikola Tesla. Pretty interesting gentleman there with his experiments. Do you want to pick up a chapter, John, and take a look at that?
Sure. Let me share this.
Sure.
Okay, so I think you can see on the screen, this is the Kindle,
Gotcha.
and it shows the list of chapters. So it's a total of 13 plus 1 for the introduction. And I think most recently, as I was writing the book, I started to remember even more stories. And one of them was really going from the sponsor from Mitsubishi and then moving forward from there. And I really didn't remember a lot of things. Over the years, I wasn't really dwelling on this with the life story and everything. But as I started to write it, I started to remember more and more things. And so one thing was happening here, so let's go over to the international view, was really the story heading through with the Mitsubishi. And I talk about some things about just discussing tennis with them. And then from there, it becomes a little more serious, trying to really get myself onto the court. So what happens here, I think at one point, I described going to Hawaii. And that I was able to make directly with the sponsors in Japan. Everything worked out very good in Hawaii. I just showed some pictures of the hotel, the experience of going there, trying to set some things up from the future. But in fact, this was a little like a turning point with talking to the sponsors in Japan. The reason was because there were so many things happening in my personal life with my girlfriend Delilah at the time, that instead of me going back to Hawaii, even by myself, it ended up where I really tried harder to just get back playing on the tour. And this resulted in me talking to the sponsors in Japan, but in one of their other offices, and putting together a new investor, and that was the investor with Adidas.
Mm-hmm.
From Adidas, their friend with Reebok, they also signed on to my contract, and this was Reebok in Britain. And from there, I was able to finally put together Mitsubishi Japan, Adidas, Reebok, and the whole thing was then run by Leona Helmsley. And this was something I had just remembered recently. And that put together a really nice run of playing my tennis. and I was able to play with them for a while, winning a lot of tournaments again. And this fulfilled the whole thing with everyone getting money from my contract, that it wasn't something funny, that my contract was going so high. And the contract started to grow, went from 100 million to 120 million. And then it went all the way up to then 140 million. And then there was payments. So at that time with Leona Helmsley, it was 140 million plus. So this was really big. And so it kept my contract at the top. And I discussed this in the book, talking about my lawyer, talking about how I was also called back to a businessman in Japan who I was doing some nice things with, and talking to him. So he was in on the investment with my sport playing too. And so this made it where everything became a success at this point. And I discussed the playing. And I think, like with every chapter, things are going good, and there might have some disruptions. Someone might, things change. I think from that chapter, the only thing that really stopped my playing with Leonie Helmsley was really the death of Mr. Helmsley, which was unfortunate. But I think Miss Leona Helmsley envisioned me playing for her for maybe 5 years in time. And so this whole thing with the tennis, it did stop. But then from there, I show all the different things that had to happen, that had to go over to the Helmsley family. And from that, they found a new investor with Mr. Kellogg. And I continued to play there.
And let's just share with everybody, when we say Mr. Kellogg, you're talking about the Kellogg company that makes breakfast cereals, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Wow. And also, I just want to throw in here, because you mentioned it before, and I saw it as on the video as you're scrolling through the Kindle of the book. Your attorney was Hillary Clinton.
Yes, that's correct. Yes,
Wow.
Miss Hillary Rodham Clinton was my attorney, and she was my attorney since my contract was sold to Perot, and she has stayed as my attorney, and going right through my contract, and everything worked out really good. And she was able to make all of the contract deals. Everything went excellent. And so all these deals with Mr. Kellogg and everything like that did have to go through my lawyer. And all those things are really good. So not only did it benefit me, of course, it benefited my sponsors. I think on some of these contracts, they did try other lawyers on their side, tried some lawyers on the sponsors that they had with Reebok and things like that. But they really couldn't connect. They did have some type of disagreement, and then the contract would just stay there. So what I had to do was I really had to call my own lawyer. And yes, Hillary Rodham Clinton is the lawyer that was able to make all those deals go ahead. Some of the deals with the different lawyers weren't going to go ahead. They stopped. So that is one interesting point. It wasn't like an easy sell. I think originally the idea was also with the sale was the price of the contract, seeing if they could set it fully for a price maybe $180 million. Then they had to do paying in. And so overall, the contract really wasn't fully sold off. It was sort of still connected with all of the different sponsors, starting with the Mitsubishi Japan. So everyone stayed on, and the contract continued to grow. So this was really good. And it's described in the book here, some of all those different things, all the different problems, how I was able to solve the problems, and was able to continue playing. I think there are some tragic things that took place in here with my sponsors that end up resulting with me having to stop playing. And this was going on at the time. So, and I think last week I had talked about my other friend, Gina. And so at the time with the Leona Helmsley, I think my girlfriend was also she was another interest that she was uh could get in on this whole thing with the tennis and things like that, and so that was also another little piece that was taking place there. And this year I think I have some different things, the ending chapter and of my different sponsors. So I think really here what happened was also I knew all the presidents. And somehow I knew all the presidents, and I describe in here some interesting stories even going through here. I think on the end to the end, just to say that, I don't know if everyone's going to get to read the book, but they should. I think in the last chapter here with end to the end, it ends up with Mr. Donald Trump taking a look at my plan. And so the book
Wow.
didn't come out at any opportune time. I think Mr. Trump, I knew him years earlier with tennis, and I knew him going back many years. This is before The Apprentice show and before he was elected president. So this chapter was very interesting, was starting to connect into my architect profession.
Well, let's go there. From tennis to architecture, you talk about in this chapter, which is chapter 10, the end of the end, somebody named Sonny, and you were working for Sonny, who was an architect. Was that the first job that you got?
It wasn't my first job, but what it was one of the first jobs I was able to get after I graduated college.
Mm.
And now his job was really like moonlighting. I always had this job on the side at night. I was always very eager to work on a lot of jobs, want to generate more money for myself to pay the bills and things like that. So I'd have like a job working for an architect, say from 9 to 5, and then I'd work this job on the side at night. And this job, I kept this job going off and on all the way up to after I was licensed. I was helping this other architect. Now, I explained in the story, this architect really, he was mostly working in his family real estate business, but they had a really bad recession back in like 1992. There was a very bad recession in real estate, and he ended up having to sort of start his architect office, expand his architect office to generate more money. And that's where I came in to get that work that he needed, the extra work. So I helped him make the drawings. And I think at that time, one amazing thing was there was a lot of change in technology. I was able to take his office and switch the whole thing over to CAD on the computer compared to hand drafting.
Mm.
I put the whole drawing set together, made it more organized, and his office was doing pretty good as generating some money, getting the drawings, getting some more projects, and his office continued to grow. He was able to do pretty good. And of course, it was with my help doing that. I think I was able to help out with his job. It just turned out that somehow his business somehow ended up with his family business. I explained in the book that he was selling some apartments, and that's how that happened with the whole thing with what I explained here with
Looking back at all the deals, the tennis career in itself, there's so many different pieces. So focusing on the endorsements, the deals, the contract, call it the contract. Looking back at it now, John, would you have done anything differently in terms of accepting a contract or changing it up? Anything stand out for you?
Well, as far as the tennis contract is concerned, yeah, the whole thing with tennis contract, I think, started to get myself involved instead of it just getting sold through the sport industry. I did have to end up calling my own lawyer to help out with all these different things. And I don't know if that's a standard or not, but I think I learned a lot from that. I was able to help out. And I was able to get my contract started. I think in the last chapter, into the end, really, was something I had talked about on the last show, was something of things becoming more isolated for me. And even when I went back to play here, they had an official ATP match set up, and my previous sponsor was there. Two of my previous sponsors were there. There was still some kind of problems. And I think the problems are probably easy to solve. What it was, I think they needed to really just get some fresh coaches. They had to get some fresh coaches. I think I was finished with Anthony Cambria. Then I went to Tony Slonik, really to how to find another coach who could take over all these responsibilities. There probably aren't too many of them. You need usually like a master going up to a doctorate in sport education. They have to have all these abilities of a sport facility and connected into the ATP and things like that. There aren't too many people who could really do that. And I think just at that point really was, I'm thinking about it years later, was really to refresh the whole thing, was really to find new people to really keep my career going. In 1999, I was still young enough to play. I think at that time I was starting to get into maybe weightlifting too much, but I could still play tennis. I think the whole thing was really finding new people to really help me get just a few matches going. And so unfortunately, the last look at 1999 was it didn't really go to where I was able to start playing a whole run of tournaments again. It did just end. And so I think what happened was, I think I started to get into like a thing with, I was getting a little like isolated in the tennis, and the options of where to play were really reduced down. And I think that was a problem. So I think the real idea was really, because I think with architect work, you're sort of sitting down, you're working at the computer, you're not getting up and traveling around too much and finding maybe new people. Maybe with tennis, I can find new coaches, a new facility location to play at. So
that's a great point you bring up there. I never thought of it that way, John. We're just about out of time, but I never look at the difference. You're on the court, you're playing, you're moving all the time. Then, as an architect, let's be honest. Same thing here. We're sitting, we're working in front of a screen. It's not the same activity. It's like you had the best of both worlds at that time. Do you miss being active and moving all the time as you were when you were playing tennis?
Well, I think right now I'm sort of generating my own tennis. Things are going on with the meetup group.
Sure.
And
well, let's share that with everybody. You still are connected with tennis, just not playing on the pro level.
That's correct. I'm still teaching tennis each weekend. My group has just made 1,700 people, and that's really a rotation. Wow. Some people leave, some people join each month. Sure. It's slowly growing. That's a lot of people, so they all come and play. I teach a lot of them on Sundays. Some of them are already experienced, and I play some tennis with them. So I think that is pretty good for now.
So you really do have the best of both worlds. I didn't realize you were that active in terms of the group and teaching on weekends. Wow, good for you. That's great.
I think this is sort of like building again from the beginning, like with my tennis club, where I have people to play with. I'm sort of taking control of myself with my own book. And recently, last summer, I was over in Japan again and was able to talk to my old sponsors.
Wow.
So I was sort of just building on my own. I think looking at the last chapter, the end of the end, I think you get the idea. I put in some interesting things. That things sort of started to become a little isolated. Even my sponsor, Mr. Trump, he was trying to call around to some people to see if we can get some games going, a new coach in there, and things like that. I think that little experience. He also my previous sponsor was involved with that too. He was calling me on the phone, and he was trying to see if I found new avenues to get some people to play with. In fact, I remember, that's not in the book, but I remember talking to some friends I had at home, and they were sort of a little shocked that no one could get me some pros to just play like 20 matches or something like that. They were, at this point, I think their minds getting a little developed. They didn't want to, that particular group didn't want to do a club. So I think it took a long time for me to get back into tennis, but it sort of resulted where I really had to find my own direction and build it up. Now I'm too old to play that type of tennis, but sure. I think trying to build back a little tennis like that is enjoyable, and things are pretty good like that.
Totally. Who am I going to take lessons from? A tennis legend.
This is one picture that's around 1999 of myself. I'm still very thin.
Wow.
And, I went over. I had this picture taken over at JCPenney, and I have this nice picture in the photo there. So I had a nice picture with a suit and a tie on and everything at that age. I was still going to the beach, had a little suntan, and this is one of my pictures, and I'm still in good health, and that's all the way like in 1999. So that's when I went there, and then at the end of the strangest thing happened. There wasn't any tennis, but I was still exercising, and at the end, somehow, the high school, I was jogging there, and I saw them uncover some old trophies, and the trophies were buried in the dirt. And then I saw a car drive up. It was my old coach, Anthony Cambria, and they took these old trophies out of the dirt, and he put them in the car. Because years ago, I was explaining in the book that they used to bring the trophies with either the postal service or the UPS, and they didn't put them in the office. They used to leave them outside.
Right.
So by the time my coach would get to his office, some of them were missing, and they ended up in the dirt on the side of the school.
It's almost like a time capsule. You ever seen those before? It's a John Riggio time capsule. We're out of time right now, John. Great having you on here. Love the book. I love the specific references in the book, and I believe I just saw, in looking at it on screen here, a reference to the Broadway Mall. Now, we both just happen to be from Long Island, and that brought back memories right there for me. I mean, Broadway Mall in Hicksville, you're talking about Delilah there, I believe it was. Just great book, a lot of inspiration. You can find it on Amazon. Just search out John Riggio, Riggio, and type in the word tennis. It comes up, or your website, johnriggio.com. John, thanks for having us on. Back here again today, and great stories, great memories, and inspirational. Really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome, Steve. Talk to you later. Thanks.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.